33, and I'm calling the meeting to order. Diane, will you be you'll be our timekeeper tonight? Is that okay?
Oh, okay.
Yep. Have you on the agenda?
Is Gabriella not available?
I am here.
Oh,
I'm
your name's on the agenda.
I am in chambers.
The staff update, it says it's Gabriella's turn. That's why I was confused.
Oh, I thought I was in July.
All right, I can do it.
Okay, thank you. Public appearances for non-agenda items. Is anyone in the chambers?
No one in the chambers.
Okay, and no one else on the Zoom meeting? Okay, we move to the next item on the agenda, approval of minutes. We have 2 minutes to approve, two different sets of minutes to approve. Do I have a motion to approve the March 8th minutes?
Motion to approve the March 8 minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, open for discussion. Any discussion? If there is no discussion, all those in favor of approving the March 8th meeting minutes, say aye.
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 All those who oppose the March 8th meeting minutes, say nay. Okay, minutes approved for March 8th. Next is, do I have a motion to approve the May 10th, 2021 minutes?
I make that
I'll move
motion.
to approve.
Okay, open for discussion.
I have one, maybe two things on, I think I just need to get my bearings. I think it's on, these were actually, I had a comment on the previous minutes. Let me hang on one second. No, 4H. I suggest that the wording on 4H say instead raise concerns about giving higher priority flooding issues identified in the Duns Marsh neighborhood. So it would say, I worked on this 2 days ago out of my office, and I'm just trying to get my bearings here. Commissioners raised concerns about whether this would effectively prioritize the Sherrill Drive area over Duns Marsh, given higher priority flooding issues identified in the Duns Marsh neighborhood. Do you follow that, Claudia?
So instead of saying,
after Duns Marsh, where it starts with given, given higher priority flooding issues identified in the Duns Marsh neighborhood.
oh, okay, yeah.
And then continue on with and encourage the budget or contract amendment. Okay?
Got it.
And then under M, for M, I would suggest inserting number in front of annual number of RCC meetings.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay. So do I have to make a motion to approve those changes?
No, you don't.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the meeting minutes for May 10th? If no other discussion, all those in favor of approving May 10 meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Those who oppose, say nay. Minutes approved. Okay, next item on the agenda under new business is the introduction of Josh Knackert. Is he still here? There you are. I'd like to welcome Josh to the committee. I think it's great. You're going to be part of this committee. And we really look forward to have your involvement on the committee and your input. And so what I'd like to do, maybe just for Josh's purposes, is go around and briefly the commission members and Claudia and Gabrielle to give just a brief introduction of yourself, just a little bit about your background, so Josh can have an idea, who we are. And I could start at first. Josh, I'm Ron French. I'm the chair of the RCC committee. And I've been on here almost a year now. And my background, I'm an ecologist, particularly more focused on water quality and fisheries. And so I do a lot of that work, kind of semi-retired, but I still do and enjoy that type of work. Shelley?
Hi, Josh. I'm Shelley Reynolds, and I have no education in this. I'm your average Joe. So I get to ask the dumb questions. I do real estate for my business, and yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Thanks, Shelley. Diane?
My name is Diane Struck. I've been on RCC almost since the turn of the last century. I serve chair. I took my turn as chair. Let's see, I'm a CPA professionally, and during my time on RCC, I've learned an incredible amount about recycling and stormwater and all the areas that RCC covers. I originally got involved because I was interested in recycling, and you'll find that it just draws you in. At least I hope you find that.
Chris? Thanks, Shelley. Diane.
Yeah, my name is Chris Jimison. So I've been on the RCC since 2008. So I moved into Fitchburg in 2007 and started going to the RCC meetings, and was a past chair from 2015 to 2019. And I have been involved with a lot of different things. I've also learned a lot through RCC over the years. One of the things that I got tasked with pretty early in my time on RCC was to be the chair of our community outreach subcommittee on sustainability. And so also Kim serves on that. And then we have another resident in Fitchburg, Sharon, and then generally Phil, the sustainability person with Fitchburg, serves on that as well. And so between us, we kind of take the lead on organizing different sustainability events that we have. And we'll have our first one in a while coming up on June 17th on tree diversity at Quarry Hill Park. So hopefully could meet you potentially there in person.
Thanks, Chris. Kim?
Hi, I'm Kim Morkentine, and I work for Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association as their youth education director. So my interests lie in connecting youth to sustainability and conservation. And when I first came on, I was interested in getting a milk carton recycling program started at my son's school, and found out that Chris's son was in my son's class. So together we kind of took that effort on and started this program in first grade, and now they're in sixth grade. So it's still going, which has been great and a huge passion of ours. And we're in the process of expanding that beyond Aldo Leopold and to other elementary schools in Madison. So welcome.
Great. Thanks, Kim. Gabrielle?
Hi, I'm Gabriella Gerhardt. I'm in Chambers, so you might be able to see. Oh, here I am. Okay. Hi. You met me a little bit when we voted you in at the last or a couple meetings ago. So I am an Alder representing District 2. This is my second year of my first term, and environmental issues and the things that we look at for RCC have been very important to me. And I talked about them during my campaign: climate change resiliency, sustainability, stormwater management, recycling. All of those things I'm really passionate about. So this committee, I was so excited that I get to be a part of this committee, and I have an absolute blast with this group. I think it's a really passionate group. We accomplished a lot last year, and one of the things that we'll talk about tonight, the Swan Creek Monitoring Station, is like one of my favorite things that we worked on as a group last year, and we got it through the budget process, and then it got installed, and now we're going to talk about it tonight. So it's a really great committee. I hope you enjoy being a part of it, Josh. We work hard, and we get a lot done, so we're excited to have you join us.
Thanks, Gabriella. And Claudia?
Hey Josh, so I am the staff contact for, along with Phil Groupie, who's not here, for the Resource Conservation Commission. I guess I should mention, Phil's not here because we added 2 meetings to RCC, and one is going to be a stormwater focused meeting and one is going to be a sustainability focused meeting. So that's the reason why he's not present today. So my areas are stormwater, refuse and recycling, yard waste, brush pickup. Those are the main areas. And my degree is in civil and environmental engineering. And I apologize. I have to move my cat. I thought I did before this. That's my intro. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Okay, Josh, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, take a minute or two?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first off, nice to meet everybody. Really excited to find this organization and be able to be, nominated to it. Really excited by the passion that's already clear in the minutes and in everybody's introductions. So really looking forward to that. So yeah, my name's Josh Nackert. I am a recent Fitchburg resident 2 years ago, but have lived in Wisconsin my whole life. For a long time in the Milwaukee area and for a number of years in Madison. I went to UW for a microbiology undergrad degree and a certificate in environmental studies, and then went back for a cellular and molecular pathology master's. Have a number of years of experience as a life science, namely in the neuroscience and stem cell space as a researcher. I've also been a science outreacher, a science writer, an administration or a university administrator, and my current role is with Exact Sciences as a grants and medical education specialist. So those are all, I like to weave those into my environmental passions. I certainly call upon them as I try to advocate and kind of work in these spaces. But yeah, really excited, looking to do continue the great work of this group for my kids who are very young and who will hopefully be in this area for a long time. And the neighborhood. And the last note I'll make is that I saw Phil earlier today because I also serve on the Dane County Resource Conservation Council. So he's on that with me as well. So this is my other kind of avenue for that.
Okay, well, great, Josh. That's we're really glad you're on our team and you're working with a bunch of very passionate people, and we look forward to having your involvement and your talents. Particularly, I noticed in your nomination form that you are a freelance writer. So we do articles for the Fitchburg Star. So be expected to might have to prepare a couple articles each year for that.
I look forward to it. My opportunities for that have dwindled, and I just craft content at work, which is definitely not the same. So I'm definitely on board for that.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you and welcome aboard again.
Hey, Ron, I have a quick question, if that's okay. This is Gabriella.
Yeah.
I was wondering if maybe we could, since Josh and Phil both serve on the Dane County Resource Conservation Equivalent, it might be interesting to get an update from them, maybe every once in a while at a meeting about what's going on at the county level. The same way I give council updates, I think it could be valuable to hear what's happening on the county level.
Okay.
Josh, how often do you meet?
We meet monthly. We made a similar request to Phil that we want him to share his list of his similar colleagues in all the municipalities in the county and have them kind of rotate in and talk to us about what the various municipalities are doing as well. So yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm pretty new to it since January. Phil, I think, was last month. So we're both kind of the newest members. But yeah, we can definitely bring, updates on a certain cadence or, for a certain topic. That would be a great, I think, collaboration between the two groups.
Good idea.
Is this a relatively new group, Josh, or has it been around for a little while?
No, Joe Parisi served back on it in like the 80s. It's been around for a long time. They have the primary focus is on prairie restoration and native pollinators. So those are kind of the two big circles that that committee lives in the most. And the main mechanism for that is a grant mechanism that actually just opened, I think, last week. So, and that did recently combine with a number of other county organizations that are kind of in a similar space. So the Friends of Dane County Parks and the Native Plant Dane, I think, was another one. So that's kind of the main arm, the main mechanism for their action. But yeah, it's been around a long time, so it's a cool group to be a part of. Lots of history, and we're trying to look to even expand the connections and expand the collaboration.
Okay, great. All right, we can move on to the next item now, unless there's any other discussions. Next item on the agenda, 4B, Resolution R-114-21, approving a contract with Field and Stream Restorations, LLC for 2021-2023 Harlan Hills and Ashbourne Pond Ecological Services. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Second, discussion? I just
Claudia, are
have.
you planning on presenting this?
I can give a brief update. So basically we had a previous contractor who was working on this site, and they had been working on the site for about 4 years, and we decided that the quality of their work was the site was not where we wanted it to be after 4 years. And we've been working with them for the last 2 years, and we just really weren't able to turn things around. So this year we decided to terminate that contract early. And then we reached out to Field and Stream for a quote, and yeah, so we're hoping we can keep on moving forward with this site and see some changes for that neighborhood.
Was there a specific reason in terms of not meeting performances? Was it plants not growing, or did he meet?
So the plants are primarily weeds there.
Okay.
So it doesn't look the way you would expect a restoration project to look after 4 years.
How much was their contract for?
I want to say it was $30,000 over 5 years, something like that. Okay. I would have to double check, but I think that's the ballpark.
Okay. Any other discussion on this resolution?
Yeah, I just have a question. I know you weren't here back then, Claudia, but do you know why Field and Stream wasn't chosen originally?
So they were second. The other consultant was cheaper.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any more discussion?
Question
I
from
remember it was cheaper by a lot. Just a comment.
question from Gabriella.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious in terms of how we deal with contractors that have done subpar work for the city. Is there a way we can maintain that institutional knowledge so we don't award them contracts in the future if we have doubts about their ability to carry out the work?
So I guess we don't have a mechanism to write it down that I know of. It's really just, I would have to know, or Bill would have to know, or it's something we can look into. I can talk to Bill about that. I think that's a good idea given staff turnover historically. So
yeah, it seems like it might be valuable.
All of these contracts are reviewed by the city attorney, so maybe the city attorney can just keep an ongoing list for the whole city.
Mm-hmm.
And that way staff turnover shouldn't be an issue.
I mean, my concern, if they submit on another project and they're low bidder, and do you automatically award to the low bidder?
And you don't for RFPs. It's not. And Ron, you were involved in one review process for a proposal. So you do grade them based on a set of various criteria, not just costs. Yeah. But a lot of times, if all things are relatively equal and the cost is very, very different, you do go with the low one.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't remember if there was a certain metric that we looked at in terms of past performance.
There was one history of work. I struggle to put history of work specifically within the city of Fitchburg because I think that would potentially get rid of a little bit of competition, because people who don't have history, who are perfectly qualified, who just haven't done work in Fitchburg, might not be as interested in pursuing that RFP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other Discussion?
One more question for me. Is it possible that I know you didn't name the name of the company that's in the contract that we're terminating, and maybe you don't want to share that publicly for whatever reason, but I would like to know it just for my own personal. So if I'm on the council, or maybe the RCC can know
Yeah.
it, so that we keep it in mind
It
when
is
we see
public.
things.
It's public knowledge. The name was Good Oak. That was the name of the company. And I just didn't want to put it in the packet just because, it's not. a great
Yeah.
thing.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I didn't really fully hear it.
Good Oak.
Good Oak. Okay.
Good space OAK. Good Oak.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving resolution R-113-21, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Motion approved. Next on the agenda, item 4C, storm management concepts. Claudia, I guess this is your 57 slide program, which is really good.
It's great.
We learned a lot by reading through them.
Oh, good. Okay. Let me just pull up that PowerPoint. And I will say I'll try to fly through these slides because I know there are a lot of them. And I think I only gave myself 20 minutes or maybe 25.
Well, you have 5 extra minutes.
Excellent. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And if you have questions along the way, just stop me. Otherwise, I will go ahead and monologue. So,
Okay, thank you.
all right. Great. And you're seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so the purpose of this presentation is just to go over the city's role in protecting our local waterways. We're going to start with just a couple of background stormwater concepts on how development can degrade stormwater quality, the city's role in protecting stormwater quality, and then we'll talk about erosion control during construction activities and long-term stormwater management facilities. So just a couple concepts, and these slides are, probably pretty basic, but I want to make sure we all get on the same page here. So runoff in an urban environment, typically you have what's called a municipal separate storm sewer system that's different from a combined sewer system where sanitary and storm go into the same set of pipes. That's a very old way of designing your system. Now, most places in the country have a storm system that conveys water to lakes and rivers, and then a sanitary system, a separate sanitary system that conveys raw sewage to a treatment plant. And this is what that looks like in a neighborhood. Water will run off of hard surfaces, pervious surfaces as well, and then go into storm inlets, and then it will go into underground piping and eventually make its way to a water body. And on the right-hand side, you can just see that's what an inlet looks like. Okay, so how does development impact? I have to move my video off the screen so I can actually see my slides. Okay, sorry about that. So how does stormwater runoff get impacted when you develop an area? So you can see in this graphic that as you develop, you actually put down hard surfaces that don't allow water to penetrate into the underlying surface soils. And what that means is that you have a lot increased stormwater runoff, increased runoff volume because you have less infiltration. In addition, there's additional sediment that comes off of these surfaces and reduced infiltration that's similar to increased runoff volume, as well as oil and grease that comes off of areas that, that are drivable. So if you have increased velocities, you might see this in the form of erosion in your natural stream banks and channels. The additional sediment can lead to increased turbidity, which can affect light necessary for photosynthesis, which can reduce aquatic plant survival. increased water temperatures leading to lower dissolved oxygen levels, and actually the sediment itself can be a mechanism to cause additional erosion as well. And as you're putting these hard surfaces down, it can also reduce infiltration rates. And that's important for, especially in this area, because our drinking water comes from our groundwater aquifers. Another thing that you can see with that increased sediment load are algae blooms. That's something that we see a lot of in Madison in particular. And sorry, I live in Madison, so I'm saying Madison. But you know, in this whole region, you see algae in lakes and rivers, and that's really because you're getting a lot of nutrients going to those areas. Potentially more nutrients than would have been there. Well, definitely more nutrients than would have been there naturally. And when you have algae blooms, a lot of times that can deplete the oxygen from the water, which can lead to fish kills. And it can also, if the algae is toxic, it can also lead to other things dying. And this photo is really sad. You see a dead duck as well, which is
in beach closings.
And beach closings, right? So it's not only animals that are impacted, but of course humans as well. And it can be unsafe to humans and pets as well. Oil and grease, often visible as a sheen on the surface of the water, and can also create a sludge at the bottom of a water body, dangerous to all sorts of aquatic life as well as humans. Okay, so that's just a little brief background in what can happen if you develop and you have no controls at all for development. So what is the city's role in actually protecting stormwater? And this is just a brief description of what our ordinance says here. So we do have erosion control requirements that need to be in place while construction is occurring. So that's while you're out there moving dirt, which that's probably the most exposed that the dirt will be, and the most able it will be to run off and create dirty water downstream is when you're doing construction. So there are erosion control requirements. There's an erosion control permitting process. And then there's oversight during construction activities to make sure that those plans are actually carried out and the practices are in place.
Claudia, is that 90% pre-development infiltration requirement, is that pretty widespread throughout Dane County?
Throughout Dane County, I believe it's pretty widespread. I know the city of Madison, I believe, does 90% as well.
Okay.
The DNR's requirement is less. I'm forgetting what it is because we always just go with the most strict requirement, and that's the one that you look for.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And then the second thing that we do is after construction is completed, we also require that permanent practices be put in place to protect downstream water resources and downstream properties. So one requirement is rate control, and I'll go into each of these in more detail later, but rate control for the 1 to 100 year event, volume control, also known kind of as the infiltration requirement, which is 90% of the pre-development infiltration volume needs to be infiltrated in the post-development state, 80% TSS reduction, and then oil and grease control. And there's a link to the city's ordinance where all of that is stated. So this is what our erosion control program looks like. Before and during construction, we have an erosion control and stormwater management permit that needs to be submitted, and we'll review those permit materials. We work with Dane County on that. We actually, we do some of the administrative work in-house, but most of the heavy review is done by Dane County on behalf of the city of Fitchburg. And that review is to ensure that our erosion control ordinance is met by what is being proposed, and in addition that our stormwater management ordinance is also met. And if usually we go back and forth with some comments, and at the end, once it's been assured that our ordinance requirements are met, then we issue the erosion control permit. And then after the permit has been issued, the permittee is responsible for doing weekly inspections to verify that erosion control practices are in place. And they need to submit their weekly inspections to the city. In addition, we do oversight inspections just to kind of have a regulatory oversight of those areas as well. And those oversight inspections, with the exception of plats, which city staff do plats because we're on plats specifically to inspect the infrastructure. So to avoid duplicative work, city staff inspect plats, but for the most part, for most projects, Dane County inspects that on our behalf. And then at the end of construction, we verify, okay, sorry, this is still during construction. We do inspections to verify erosion control practices are in place. And then we also collect and review the stormwater certification. That's the as-built certification. So after, you know, they have these permanent practices such as a pond or a bioretention basin. And at the end of that, we'll make sure that facility was actually constructed as it was designed. And if it is different, then they are required to rerun their calculations to make sure that the ordinance is still met. Okay, and then after construction, folks are required to maintain their facilities into perpetuity. And annually, we require an annual maintenance report to be submitted to the city to say what maintenance activities they have done the year prior. So just a little more information on erosion control during construction. What does that look like? So this is just some background information. And I don't know the source of this muddy water in this photo, but that's kind of just an illustration of what it might look like if you did nothing on a construction site and you just let muddy water go downstream with no controls. All right, so this is just an overview of our permitting process. So step one is submitting the permit to the city. We verify that it's complete. Then we send it to Dane County as step two. They will do the review, make sure that the ordinance is being met. And then step three is the city does a final review and verify that we've received, well, we actually verify that we received a recorded copy of the maintenance agreement later in the process. I have it listed as step three, but that we receive a draft copy with the permit, and then it has to be recorded within 30 days of permit issuance. So I should update this slide, but the city does a final review, and then we're the ones who actually issue the permit. So step four is permit issuance. We require the person who's going to be doing inspections on behalf of the permittee to fill out an erosion control inspection form. And that form goes over some of our expectations for the inspector while they're doing these inspections. All right, so this is what the inspector form looks like. This is a relatively new form. One of the things that I don't think is necessarily as clear. So I come from Maryland. In Maryland, everyone's required in the whole state. It's a state requirement that before you do design or inspection or anything like that related to erosion control, you have to take a class. That's not required here. So I wanted to make sure at a minimum that folks have an idea of what our expectations are. because what we were finding is some people kind of did drive-by inspections, or they were looking at maybe, you know, a spot check of things, and they weren't really looking at every single piece of erosion control as part of the inspection. And that really is the expectation, because a lot of times the inspector is the only one who might be finding issues. So we do have them fill out this form, and it kind of just goes over some basic things that we are expecting them to do. And they have to sign that they have read it and give their contact information. Inspections are required weekly, and then if we have a half-inch rainfall event, they are required, I believe, within 48 hours of that event. They're required to record their inspections in Permatrack, which is just an online tool for them to record their inspections. And then we go in every Monday, Dakota goes in actually, and verifies that all of the inspections are in place. If they're not in place, folks can get a warning or a citation for not having done their inspection. So
Claudia, how do you track to make sure that everybody has submitted their report?
So the way that it works in Permatrack is each site has its own, I guess, setup. It's a link for each site essentially. And then there's kind of another column that says when was the last inspection submitted. And then you can sort that column by date. So you can see all of the new ones pass, and then after a certain date, it's more than a week old. So you can see that those, and if there are any that are more than a week old, then you would send them.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Do you get a notification from Permatrack that something's overdue?
No, you don't get a notification. You have to do
So you
that.
have to usually go in and check each time then.
Yeah, and it's a weekly task, right?
Okay.
All right. And then this is just an example of what Permatrack looks like when you're submitting an inspection. So you have to say what it is you're inspecting. So in this case, it's a stone tracking pad. Was it inspected? You would select yes. And is anything needed? Is it correct? Or do you need maintenance to that BMP? And then at the end, you have to change it to say final, and then you hit save, and then we'll see it next time we go to check for those inspections. So maintenance of erosion control measures, minimum of 24 hours after the issue is observed. Street sweeping, a minimum of daily, potentially more, just depending on how much they're driving in and out of the site and how wet it's been. That tracking might get worse in some scenarios, but a minimum of daily. And then if they are doing dewatering, inspection of that should be done a minimum of daily as well.
What do you mean?
Sorry,
What do you mean? What do you, when you say minimum of 24 hours after issue is observed, what issue?
So for example, if you find, I wonder if I have pictures here. So this is on the right-hand side, you can see this fence. Can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Okay, so this fence here is called a silt fence.
Yep.
And it's supposed to be entrenched. And the reason why it's supposed to be entrenched is because water needs to flow through that silt fence, and it gets filtered as it flows through. But one thing that might happen is that might become unentrenched over time, or sediment might accumulate on the backside of that. And once sediment has accumulated to half the height of the silt fence, you're required to maintain it. And if it becomes unentrenched, you're required to maintain that. Or if it tears or someone drives over it, you would need to maintain that. So basically, anytime you would observe an issue with these BMPs, you would need to correct it.
Within 24 hours.
Within 24 hours is what we tell folks. Depending on the issue, It might take longer. Just for example, if it's a tracking pad and they need to purchase additional stone, we might work with them on that. You know, if they just can't get stone in 24 hours. What are other things? Ideally, it's 24 hours, but sometimes also if you have a small tear in your silt fence, you know, we might not require you to go fix that within 24 hours. But certainly what we tell folks the expectation is 24 hours. And then we work with them if, you know, if there's something that's reasonable. Certainly if there's rain in the forecast, it needs to be fixed right away.
So this is reported to you by the inspector, either weekly or depending on the rain. And then based on that, then this would kick in. Is that correct? Is that how the process works?
So the inspector would need to communicate directly with the contractors who are doing the work, the construction crew,
Okay.
And have them fix it. We're not the go-between for that. We do require to see that they have done their inspection. And the expectation is that they...
Expectations of them.
Yes, and the expectation is that they give it to the construction crew and not that they just submit it to us. And that is also laid out in the inspector form.
Okay, thanks.
So Claudia, if you're driving by, just go back to that picture.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, if you're driving by and you see part of the silt fence collapse, do you report that, or do city employees report that to you, or?
Yeah, so city employees do, if they see issues, they'll bring that to me. But
then
we
you
do
contact
have
the
someone.
contractor?
So usually I will contact, just because we do have an inspector through Dane County who does that inspection. And one issue that we kind of had was multiple people trying to contact the contractor and giving, oh, this person told me 24 hours, that person told me 48 hours, you know, this, I talked to this person and, you know, they said, you know, whatever. So we have a dedicated point of contact for each site. So if it's one that Dane County inspects, if it's a commercial site, then I will send issues to Dane County and they will follow up with the contractor. If it's a plat, then we are the designated point of contact for, or not the point of contact, but the designated communicator if there is an issue that's observed.
I've been out to residential new construction a lot, and I've never seen a street sweeper.
So residential doesn't fall under this part of the ordinance. That's actually building inspection will review those. And then they're also responsible for the oversight of that. And it's a different code. It's the UDC, Universal Dwelling Code, is what the requirements are for that, which are slightly different from what I'm talking about here. But those are single family homes. That's different. And I'm not sure, you know, I'm not as familiar with those. I'm not sure if street sweeping is a requirement.
Yeah, I doubt it.
I do know some of those
Thanks,
sites
though.
have done, there's a Bobcat attachment that it's not necessarily like a certified sweeper, but it's like a big brush on the front of the Bobcat. I know some contractors will do that. I don't know if they're doing that per code or just to try and clean up the site, but that's usually what I've seen in the residential settings when I've seen it.
Okay, that's great. All right, so permit closeout, inspections need to continue until permit closeout. I think I'll skip through a couple of these slides pretty quickly. We don't allow permits to close until 70% vegetative cover is on the site and the site has been established. If there are any special conditions, those need to be met. And then after, so they'll come to us and say, we think our site is ready for us to remove our erosion control measures. We'll go verify that 70% cover is there and that there are no egregious areas that need to be addressed. And then after we've done that inspection, we'll tell them that they can go ahead and remove their erosion control measures. And then after they remove the erosion control measures, that's when we close out the permit. So that's the process. is for if there's a stormwater management BMP, a long-term facility that's there are just a couple extra steps. So we want to see that the stormwater maintenance agreement has been recorded and that the city has received a recorded copy of that. We'll also require that as-built certification to be submitted and approved. And we must receive a contact for the long-term maintenance of those facilities. So on the right-hand side, we kind of talked about silt fence. On the left-hand side of this slide is inlet protection. So inlet protection catches dirt before it enters the storm sewer. And it's basically just a bag that has filter fabric is what the bag is composed of. And when those get halfway full of sediment, that's when those are supposed to be maintained. This is a tracking pad. It's designed to knock mud off of the tires of your construction vehicles before they leave the site. Erosion control matting, so that that just helps the dirt stay in place while your vegetation is growing. All right, so those are just kind of an overview of the types of things you might see during construction. Those are all temporary measures. And then I wanted to talk about permanent facilities that might be required of construction as well. So this is similar to what we had seen before. We implement controls to combat the negative impacts of development. So increased stormwater runoff rates. So we'll send all of that water to a pond, typically it's a pond, to hold that water and release it more slowly over time to match pre-development runoff rates. For increased volume, what we do is we send that water to an infiltrative device, such as a bioretention basin or an infiltration basin, so that the amount of water after development is at least 90% of what it was prior to development.
Claudia, are we talking now, does this include residential? Right, when you're talking this discussion?
So residential as well. Usually, if you have a plat that's being developed, a lot of times this is done at the regional level. So if you have a commercial lot, you might have facilities actually on that lot. For residential, nobody has individual facilities on their actual lot. There are regional facilities, and then those get conveyed to the city typically, and then we maintain them.
Okay.
So for sediment, we send those to wet ponds, bioretention basins, and sumps, so that the sediment can be either settled out or filtered out. And then the increased volume is a little bit, so increased volume, we combat that again with infiltration. So bioretention or infiltration basins. And then oil and grease control, you would send areas that have a lot of parking or maybe a fast food drive-through, you would send that to a measure that's designed to remove oil and grease. So bioretention basins are designed to do that. You can have oil control bags that look a lot like the temporary sediment bags, the inlet protection bag we saw earlier, but they have sturdier ones that are designed to actually last over time. And then you have these, they look like pouches, but you put that in the bag and it absorbs oil over time, and then those pouches need to be refreshed at least annually, and then the bag needs to be replaced when it's torn. Usually those last at least 5 years. All right.
Claudia, where does all that stuff get disposed at? When you have these bags with oil and everything.
Yeah, so that would go to the landfill. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what does it mean to provide rate control? And on the left-hand side here, you can see the pre-development condition has a lot of vegetation, and then the post-development condition has a lot of hard surfaces. So the water, when it runs off of those hard surfaces, it actually gets to our lakes and rivers much faster than it otherwise would. And so you can see that on the right-hand side here. This is called a hydrograph. So basically, if we were to look at a point where the water flows that's downstream and just say how fast is the water running in this area, that's basically what discharge is. You would see that the rate would increase much more quickly and it would get much higher. So you'd have much faster water in the post-development hydrograph when you have no controls. And then if you, in the pre-development hydrograph, you have this lower rate, the lower peak rate, and it's also spread out over time, so it's less flashy.
Just so that you know, you have 7 minutes left.
I'll go fast.
Okay.
So you send that water to, for example, a pond. And what you do is you make sure that your post-development hydrograph, after going through the pond, does not have the rate of water leaving it faster than the pre-development hydrograph. So that's just an example of what it might look like after it's been through the pond. So when it enters the pond, it has the spike, and then when it leaves the pond, it will be flattened out. So what does it mean to provide rate control? So you have water entering, this is just an analogy, a bathtub. And if water can leave at the same rate, you're not really providing rate control. This is just, it's passing through. But if you turn the water up, and so now water is coming in much more quickly than it's leaving. So what will happen is that water will build up in the tub. Sorry, there's a lot of text. Water will build up in the tub, and then it will still leave at a slower rate than it's going in because it has that ability to be stored in that area until it can leave at the rate that you are designing the facility for. So that's basically how ponds work. Infiltration, you send the water to a basin to infiltrate. And TSS, you would do the same thing. You send water to a basin to be treated. These are some typical types of stormwater facilities. Dry ponds, you don't see that as much anymore. Those just provide detention. So they have a storage area where you can store the water and then a structure at the end that controls how fast the water leaves that facility. A wet pond is very similar to a dry pond, except that it also has it has water basically where the ground would be in the dry version. So the area above the water table is providing that rate control, and it's the temporary storage. And then the area below that water table is providing an area where solids can settle out. And then on the right-hand side, you see a bioretention basin, which provides detention, sediment removal, and infiltration. And this is just a graphic of what a dry pond might look like. I think I'll skip this. And this is a graphic of what a wet pond looks like. Water is coming in on the left-hand side. It's going into a forebay. The reason you have a forebay is because usually you want to get the solids to settle out right away. So you kind of create almost a stilling basin. And that's just done for maintenance purposes. Then you might have a smaller area that needs to be dredged in the future. And this is kind of how what I had described. So the area above normal pool is providing that rate control space. That bounce is providing the rate control. And then below that normal pool is the TSS removal. And then the graphic on the lower side is just showing basically the mechanism for TSS removal is settling. So as water moves from one side of the pond to the other, sediment can settle out. So it when it leaves the pond, it's cleaner than when it left. And that's why sediment accumulates in ponds over time and eventually needs to be dredged.
Claudia, what's the requirement or criteria to determine whether you put in a dry pond or a wet pond at a site?
So dry ponds were popular in the past because there was no water quality requirement. And as now there is that 80% TSS water quality requirement. So I would say nobody builds dry ponds anymore. Because you can use the same space to achieve two different functions if you have a wet pond versus a dry pond and then send it to an infiltration basin or another facility. So yeah, it's really up to the developer what they want to propose, so they can choose any mechanism they want, and then we verify that it's meeting the ordinance requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Can you explain, Claudia, the difference between a retention pond and a detention pond? If there is one?
They're really used interchangeably.
Okay, thanks.
Can you, so I know that the 25 and 100-year rates are being updated currently due to a lot of effects of climate change. Do you know, has the city already done a revision of what it requires for these ponds, or is that in the works?
So the city follows NOAA Atlas 14, which is it's something that's put together at the national level by the National Weather Service. So the way that works is they collect data and periodically they'll publish updates. The last update we had in this area is 2015. And that's the industry accepted standard for rainfall. So that's, I would say, probably most folks in the entire country use NOAA Atlas 14. I do know, and I have heard that there are folks in this area who think that the storm events are not, it's just changing so quickly with climate change, that even though we have rates from 2015, they're already out of date. So I know Madison recently updated their ordinance. They actually decided, instead of changing the 100-year storm event, instead of changing the rainfall amount, they changed it to say that folks are required to meet the 200-year storm event. And I don't know the background on why they decided to do it that way. My suspicion is because they wanted to continue to use NOAA Atlas 14. So there's data at UW that shows that potentially the 200-year storm event is closer to what the actual 100-year storm event. So what I believe is that they were using the 200 as a surrogate for the 100, but still wanting to use that nationally recognized standard, because that will definitely hold up in court, rather than someone, even a UW professor, very prestigious, that's not the same as NOAA Atlas 14, which is accepted by everyone.
Is that something that you think Fitchburg should also do?
So I've been following that. One thing, I know that Dane County is working on doing just that. So if it's done at the county level, it would automatically apply to Fitchburg.
Okay.
So I haven't been, I guess it's bringing that here just because that's in the works. My understanding is end of summer is when they're hoping that will go through.
Great.
So yeah, we'll see on that. I think they just had a lot of new folks or something floated down. I'm not 100% sure what it was. It was supposed to be earlier this summer, but I think now it's late summer or fall. But if it happens at that level, it will apply to Fitchburg, because you always go with the strictest requirements.
Okay.
Thanks for that context.
I'm sad to say that your time is up.
All right.
Nice job.
No more information. All right. Yeah. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer any. Otherwise, we can move on.
No, that was a nice presentation, Claudia. Very informative. Thank you for sharing.
Good job as always.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Yes, very thorough.
yeah. Okay, we can move on to the next item on the agenda, item 4D, the Dwight Site-Specific Vegetation Management Plan. We kind of discussed it at our last meeting, and so Claudia, I'll open it up to you. I mean, I have a few comments on it, so just.
All right, so I didn't have anything planned to present here. The purpose of this was so that we could just do a deep dive into any comments that folks might have. So if you have a comment, it would be helpful. Maybe I'll share my screen, and if you can tell me what page on the packet you're talking about, then I can jump to that page and we can look at it together.
I think one of the things we brought up last time is having a map of all the locations.
Yes, so that's in the works. Yeah.
We also brought up last time that page 85, the chart is missing Seminole Village Pond. So maybe that just didn't get fixed yet.
Yeah, so this is the same version as what we looked at last time. Just
okay.
Yeah.
I was curious. I noticed in all the discussions of the different basins that there's yearly costs for year 1, 2, and 3. Are those costs somewhere summarized for all the basins? So it gives the city an idea of how much money or stormwater money has to be allotted for each of those sites, or for overall for budgeting purposes.
Ron, can you tell me what page you're looking at?
Just go to like one of the basins.
Oh, okay.
Okay, go back one. Right there, you see the estimated cost. So when you're budgeting purposes, year 1, year 2, year 3, I mean, are those all summarized somewheres? They're all added together to determine what the cost would be, and are those costs considered in our budget, annual budget?
So this is kind of the first time it's been done like this, Ron. So I mean, it's added together in a spreadsheet that I have. It's
Okay.
not, published anywhere, but it is something that we're looking at.
I mean, we have a lot of facilities, and so those costs would add up for all those facilities. So I was just curious to see if that was summarized anywhere.
It's not. So it's summarized, I guess. It's not summarized. It's just shown separately on each page currently.
But in planning for our budget, that's looked at. You look at that and say, look, for year 1, for all our facilities, it's going to cost X amount of dollars for maintenance.
So that's not how I'm intending to set up the RFP for vegetation management. So these are just kind of budgetary. I mean, they're kind of estimates. And then they also assume that you're putting all of these facilities into the cycle on the first year. So they're all entering the same phase in year 1. So what I was planning to do is kind of break them up into burn groups. So an equal number, because that's the most expensive year generally. So an equal number of facilities would be burned 1 year. So you'd go through the burn group A 1 year, then burn group B the next year, then burn group C, and then you'd cycle back because usually you want to burn every 3 years. So that's the plan. And then in terms of budget, the way that this was going to work is if we have more facilities that we want, then we have budget for. The facilities that would not get funded are the ones that have the lower ranking.
Right. Okay.
So not all of these, if I understand this correctly, this estimated cost is there, but they're not all being implemented. It's
currently no, because I still have to do that RFP.
But they wouldn't be implemented based on your scoring system. Some of them just won't be addressed, right?
And we won't know until we receive the actual bids, because these are estimates. We won't know how much it will actually cost until we get the bids.
Okay.
And then once we get once we get the proposals, then we can make sure that everything's coming in to budget, and then we'll be able to really fine tune whether or not we have to remove facilities from that. But
So even the ones that score under 14, you're going to put those out for bid?
no, so it's if you look, it would only be the ones that are in, where is it? Long-term maintenance for other native areas. So these are the ones that would go out to bid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Claudia, do we get, once a developer puts the pond in, and then it turns over to the city, does the developer also give the city funds that the city can use for future maintenance?
So the developer is typically actually required to do vegetation maintenance for the first 3 years
Okay.
after establishment.
Okay.
For brand new facilities. I don't know how closely that was reviewed, but currently we are requiring to get a copy of the contract to make sure that that actually occurs. And there have been a couple that I've had to follow up with multiple times because the work was obviously not getting done. And then eventually I said, okay, do you want to just pay us and then we'll get a contract and we'll use the money you paid us to do these 3 years of vegetation management. So that happened once. And then before me, I don't know how it was done to verify that that was actually completed.
I have do you mind if I ask a couple other questions?
Sure.
Do you have, is there a 20-foot buffer allowed on all of these ponds?
So the way that I believe we have it written is that in the spring, if you're doing 2 mowings, which we're proposing for most facilities, is that you would leave a 20-foot buffer in the spring for habitat and also filtration purposes. And then in the fall, you would mow as close to the water's edge as possible. And that's to prevent woody vegetation from taking residence right along that water's edge.
And then I noticed some of them are getting mowed depending on whether they have wild parsnip. But the ones that don't have that, is the spring mowing timed so that we're taking bird nesting into account and yet still taking care of the invasives at the appropriate time?
So it's difficult because nesting happens one time. If you're mowing for one thing, you're not mowing for another thing. So if you mow for the parsnip, you might be doing it at a time when there's nesting. If you mow the best time for nesting, you just might not even mow in the spring. So, and then there's turtle nesting too, and there's butterflies, every single thing has a different mow time. So really the way that we've been doing it is based on staff availability. If there's a particular thing that we have noticed in that area, so for example, I know like McKee Farms, we've had reports that there was turtles in that area. So we'll take note of that. Or sometimes residents say, okay, this is an area that we're trying to establish a monarch butterfly or a butterfly habitat. So actually in that case, we might just mow in the fall. So if there are special requests, we might, or if we see parsnip or something like that, we'll do a special mowing time for certain sites. But other than that, the sites that don't have this, I guess, a special mowing time, that's just based on staff availability and competing priorities and when we're able to devote staff time to get to it.
Okay, thanks.
Any more comments for Claudia? I mean, I think this is a great document, Claudia. I'm really glad that we have this. I think it's a very important document to have for us to monitor the maintenance and the maintenance requirements for all our facilities. And I'm just happy that we have it. It's really a good tool. And thank you for help pulling all this together.
Great, no problem.
I have one other question, and I think we have a little bit of time. How do you identify what is an infiltration facility?
So it's based on what it was designed to be. So infiltration facilities are typically, if you look at the plans, it will say that it's supposed to be an infiltration facility. Sometimes just looking at the area, you'll know that it's an infiltration facility, because if you have an infiltration facility, pre-treatment is required. So if you see that water is going to a wet pond first, and then it's going to another area that looks dry, that's probably an infiltration facility, because the wet pond is getting the 60% TSS treatment that's required before you are able to infiltrate.
Okay.
So sometimes you can just tell by looking at them.
Then on the Longford Pond, you mentioned, there's a sign there that says it's restoration in progress or something, but your comment was obviously that's not happening. What does that mean? Does that mean, I understand what the sign means. My question is somebody going to come and restore that, or is the sign going to be taken away, or where does that leave it?
So currently, and let me go to that one, Longford. So right now, when Field and Stream went out there, they saw that it's 10% native vegetative cover and 90% invasives around that pond, which essentially means that if you want to have native vegetation here, you have to start all over. You have to go in and just kill all of the vegetation and then start from scratch with new seed. So this would not be something that we can just add to our maintenance plan. This is something that would need a whole new overhaul to get this into a native state. So unfortunately, the sign, unless we wanted to prioritize this, because this would have to go back into the establishment phase, and then it would be treated as, a new facility when you build it, and then you have to do intense maintenance for the first 3 years. That's what would be needed to get this site.
Why was the sign put up?
So I'm assuming that the intention was that it was going to be maintained as native. So that sign was created, but I don't know, staff turnover, it just wasn't maintained that way. And now it's not, so.
I think that sign was put up within the last 3 years.
Well, it wasn't put up while I've been at the city.
Okay.
I really doubt it was put up when Bill was in my position, because he was doing 3 different jobs. So
maybe, you know what, maybe it was covered by some other bushes, because I didn't notice it, but
okay.
Maybe that's just because something was in front of it.
Sure, yeah. So unfortunately, I think the answer to that is we should take the sign down.
Yeah. Then on Sunnyside, you have that as a score of 18, which indicates to me that there's some priority assessed to doing something to it. What work would you do to it?
Sunnyside. Okay, let me go to the page you're looking at. A score of 18. So I guess one caveat to this plan that I should mention, in talking to Bill more recently, one of the things that I learned, and this is good, this is a good thing, that's why we have these plans for transfer of knowledge. But one thing that I did not realize when I was putting together this plan, I thought the stormwater utility would be responsible for all municipal facilities. But that's not actually the case. The stormwater utility is responsible for the regional facilities. And then if there's ponds very specifically associated with, for example, a park or a building, then it would come out of those budgets. And actually, the different folks who have buildings, so like the fire department pays a stormwater utility fee, just as a commercial building would, for their impervious area that they contribute to the system, and it comes out of their budget. So some of these facilities will be removed from the plan because it's not going to be maintained by the stormwater utility. Sunnyside infiltration facility will be one, because that's designed to take that water from that parking lot, which is a park facility. but sorry, to answer your question, the type of maintenance that could be done is going in there and basically it's what you do with any native area. You would go in and you would spot treat for weeds, and you would potentially burn periodically and potentially reseed if you're finding that that the natives, you know, are just not taking in a certain area. So those are the types of things you would do.
The reason I ask, I was involved in that park, and actually that pond is supposed to be taking the way the water comes from uphill, so north of that area, and that was supposed to help slow down and help with the flooding across the street at whatever that pond is called. And it's my understanding that some native plants were put in last fall. So anyway,
Yeah.
I didn't want you going spraying herbicide if we've got native plants supposedly growing.
Yeah, and even if there are native plants, you would use herbicide on, you would spot treat it though. You would go around with a backpack sprayer and you would spray just the
Okay.
invasives. Right?
Okay, thanks.
Anything else for Claudia? Okay, well, thank you again, Claudia. Again, it's an excellent report to have, and hopefully it'll be a good tool for us. Okay, next item on the agenda, item 4E, is the assessment policy, a focus on stormwater, and you're up again, Claudia.
I didn't give myself a break, did I? Well, I apologize. I feel like everyone has to listen to me talk now, but
At least you're not hoarse.
Yeah.
all right. So let me just pull up those slides.
While you're pulling that up, just for Josh, I'm just gonna, so we added 2 meetings to our typical RCC, 8 meetings that we have a year. So we have these 10 meetings, and we decided that we really wanted to focus in on stormwater and sustainability with the 2 sessions. And so this one is dedicated to stormwater. So I'm trying to give Claudia just a second of a break. But, we're really just trying to focus in a little bit more. We identified these 2 areas as areas where, we thought we really wanted to kind of dive into them this year. These are things that we could change, in future years, and, focus in on other topics, but these are the 2 that we decided to focus in on this particular year. So that's why Claudia is talking so much about stormwater at this meeting. It's not every meeting. Normally we're spread around to a lot of different topics, but just wanted to give you a little bit of background, because I don't know if anybody filled you in on that, but that's what we're doing tonight.
Thanks for sharing that, Chris. That's a good point.
Yeah, I appreciate the context. The agenda really struck me. I was kind of like, I feel like there's a theme here, and I'm hoping that it's an installation and not an all the time, because I appreciate. I mean, this is. I was going to say, I think Claudia highlighted that, bring some ideas of what I'm passionate about to this committee, and I would say, groundwater is definitely one of the biggest things that I've tried to follow in the Madison area. I used to live on the east side, and so the conversation there was PFAS, but I think I've always been really kind of passionate about that area, and so I see these as largely linked. And so this has been really fascinating to get kind of a more full picture from Claudia, and to see, and like I said, I think it links to climate change. I think it links to a lot of these things that I would imagine this committee speaks to, and so I'm all for it. It's a great, I think, deep dive into this, and I keep seeing all these great tangents to other areas that I expect we'll speak to in the future.
Right.
All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Yes, thank you, Chris. Yeah, I do not usually just monologue the entire meeting, so thank you for pointing that out.
Just a little update, we're 7 minutes behind.
Okay. And Diane, can you remind me how much time I have for this?
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
All right. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about our assessment policy. We do have several projects coming up in the CIP that will be assessed. So just wanted to review that and how our policy relates to stormwater projects. We're going to start by looking at the special assessment policy, what it says in there about stormwater facilities in particular. And then there are various methods that can be used to determine what amount different folks are assessed. And then we'll look at upcoming stormwater projects and how the assessment policy applies to those projects specifically. So our special assessment policy can be found in a document that looks like this. It was last updated in 2013, and I provided a link there to where that's located on the internet. What costs can be assessed? It can include direct or indirect costs, a reasonable charge for the services of administrative staff of the city, and the cost of any architectural, engineering, and legal services, and any other items of direct or indirect cost which may be reasonably attributed to the proposed work. So in the stormwater world, a lot of times that would be design, paying for the design of a project as well as the construction of that project. So both of those things are accessible. So this is what the assessment policy says about, the section is called sanitary and stormwater facilities. That's why I have it written that way. So the entire cost of interceptors and stormwater management facilities shall be 100% assessed or charged to the estimated total area to be served by the interceptor or stormwater management facilities. So that's what our policy is, 100% assessment. And then below here, we have a definition of what that means. So interceptor facilities include interceptors, which are pipes. It's above a certain size pipe is considered an interceptor. I forget the size offhand, but so the pipes themselves, and then related facilities such as manholes, catch basins, inlets, as well as pumping stations and force mains, which serve a discrete sewer service area or watershed. And then stormwater management facilities, stormwater basins designed to store water either temporarily or permanently, and natural and man-made drainage ditches, swales, creeks, and wet or dry open culverts designed to service a discrete watershed. The city will generally exclude parks and other public lands not planned for development when they're determining the amount to assess. And then curb and gutter, which is another part of the stormwater system. If it's new curb and gutter, 60% of that is assessed against the benefited property. And then if it's replacement curb and gutter, then 50% is assessed. And then there's a cap at 40 feet. So if you have more than 40 feet in front of your yard that needs to be replaced, after 40 feet, it would be 100% paid for by the utility. And I think the purpose of that is just to keep costs more reasonable and affordable for folks. Okay, so assessment methods. The front foot method. So this method is used where the benefit is assumed to be related to the front footage of the property. So examples are sidewalk would be assessed this way, or curb and gutter might be assessed this way. And the formula is shown there. The area method. So with this method, we assume that the benefit is actually more related to the area of the property being served. So an example might be a drainage project. The lot or connection method. So this method is used where every lot is assumed to have the same benefit, regardless of size or front footage. So for example, every lot receives one water and one sanitary connection to the city's sanitary and water infrastructure. So that might follow the lot or connection method. And then there's one called a benefit zone. There's no equation for this. It's something that you would come up with based on your project, but it's usually an adaptation of the front foot or the area procedures. Certain properties are judged to receive greater benefit than other properties, for example, because they're in closer proximity to the improvement. And again, fixed rules cannot be stated, but factors to consider include distance from facility, utilization of the property to be assessed, and then the size of the property. And then this is just straight from our special assessment policy. These are the preferred methods of assessment, with 1 being the most common assessment method and 3 being the least common assessment method for various different types of projects that you have. So curb, gutters, and sidewalks, you usually do a foot, that's the front footage area. For pavements and alleys, again, it's based on that front foot. Storm sewer, you might have the front area, and then just down the line. So upcoming projects. Florian Drive and Lyman Lane. The purpose of this project would be to install storm sewer within the terrace of this area so that folks can connect their private sump discharge to the pipe that exists within the right-of-way. My proposal for this would be to use the connection method because most folks only have one sump pump and they would only need to connect into the city's infrastructure at one location. So, so regardless of your front footage, you would essentially be getting one connection. And then my proposal is to provide 50% assessment. And the rationale for doing 50% rather than 100% is because the public infrastructure will also benefit if some pumps are going into this storm sewer rather than into the street, because this area has, well, first of all, the pavement degrades much more quickly because of freeze and thaw during the winter, and then it's also very difficult to keep this area clear of snow, and ice buildup is particularly a problem. So there is seen, or in my perception, there's also public benefit to this as well as the private benefit. So that's the 50%.
Claudia, just a little counter to that. It seems to me that the benefit still was with the people that live there, not the general city. I mean, if the street degrades and has to be fixed, it benefits them, but it doesn't benefit somebody that lives, for example, on the other side of PD or Verona Road.
Claudia, where is this located?
So this is in the Tower Hill neighborhood. So this is next to Key Park.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting, Diane. And I don't remember offhand how resurfacing is done. I can just street improvements, page 10. Let's see. So for street improvements, so for curb and gutter, we saw that the first 40 feet are assessed at 50%.
Mm-hmm.
For new streets, that's 100% assessed. But for replacement of existing street surface between curb and gutter on either side of the street, that doesn't get assessed at all.
Okay.
So if the street does degrade, that's not assessed to this area.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, that's how I.
No, I understand. Thanks.
All right. Lake Barney. So the purpose of Lake Barney is to lower the water table of Lake Barney. And essentially it will act as a wet detention basin once it gets lowered, because it will have that ability to bounce and then allow water to leave the lake more gradually. So it does have some benefit for downstream properties. The upstream benefit is that by lowering groundwater, areas, especially in the last 4 years, that have really suffered from wet conditions, will be more farmable. So the proposal here is to use the benefit zone method. So how much folks would be assessed would be related to how close they are to the lake, because actually the drawdown is more the closer you are to the lake, and it's less the farther you are away from the lake. So it would be related to how close you are to the lake, and then also how much area of land you have that would be benefiting. So that's the proposal.
Does the construction cost, because you have to draw down close for the people that are closer, does that increase the construction cost, or is it just, well, does that increase the construction cost in general, or you draw down more and less further away, you're still drawing down? Do you see what I'm saying?
I don't think I do.
Well, I'm wondering, you said that the people that live closer, you're drawing down more. So, you know, maybe presumably they would get assessed more than the people who live further away. But
right.
So are the mechanics of drawing it down different because you're drawing down more?
So, one sec, let me just draw a picture. The way that it kind of works is, say this is, oh, I really want a white background. Sorry, I have to draw. I can't just explain that. All right. So the way it works is you have, say you have your lake here, and you have the ground looks something like this.
I'm not seeing what you're
You
drawing.
can't see anything.
Oh, okay.
Let's see your screen.
All right, let's try this again.
Okay.
So
Yep.
say this is the lake level, and this is the ground surface. And say, oh, goodness, say that way out here, your water table, I'll make it blue. Your water table is up here.
Okay.
So the way it works is this, by lowering the lake level, you'll actually be lowering the groundwater table in that area.
Okay.
And it will be lowered. I think it's inversely proportional to how close you are to the lake. So, so here you can actually, that's what this figure is trying to show, is that simulated groundwater drawdown during very wet conditions. So in this area, you're seeing 3 feet of drawdown. And then in this area, you're seeing 2 feet of drawdown. And then all the way out here, you're only getting 1 foot of drawdown based on lowering the lake.
So it costs more to do the 3 feet of drawdown than the 1 foot.
Right. So the people who are closer would be perceived to have the greater benefit, and they would be charged more.
Okay.
What kind of costs are we talking about?
So this project is, I believe, just under $1 million for construction.
Gosh.
So this is a very costly project. The way that I had it written into the CIP was half of that would be paid for by the town, or sorry, the village of Oregon. And then half of that would be paid for by the city of Fitchburg. And then for the city of Fitchburg part, half of that would be assessed.
So 25%.
So 25% of the total,
A lot.
which is still a lot, right?
It's a lot.
Is that spread over a period of time, that assessment?
I don't know that detail, Diane. Um,
How many people are we talking about that it's gonna affect? How many
so
properties?
it's this area. I just did this. I believe this is the area within the city of Fitchburg up here. Oh, actually, no, where's the line? It's down here, sorry.
It's
I
not-
don't have offhand how many properties that is.
And this is Gabriella. In terms of assessments for, we approved assessments last night for a different project, and basically, depending on how much money is assessed, there's policy as to how long they have to pay it off, whether it's a single installment or over. Sometimes it's upwards of 10 years. I think you can have to pay it off. So it depends on the level of the assessment.
Okay, got it.
So Claudia, if the drawdown is more, I'm not exactly sure on your map where the town of Oregon is, but if the drawdown is more in the town of Oregon's area, it seems to me they should be assessed more than 50%.
So they won't be assessed. We only have the ability to assess within the city of Fitchburg.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have
But-
said assessed. They should cost share more than 50%.
Yeah, and that has not been negotiated. So that is still, because they still need to even decide if this is a project that they are pursuing. But they are interested in this project, and they what I've been told is that they're very interested in the project, but they also have competing projects that are also deemed to be very high priority to them as well. So the way I put it in the CIP is that the village would pay for half, and if that doesn't come to fruition, then council would need to decide at that point if this is something that we feel we would want to do on our own, or potentially, try to make that happen.
Yeah, and to be clear to the committee too, this is in the CIP, and we've done the study that was presented at Committee of the Whole back in February by Claudia and the contractor, but this has not been budgeted yet, nor have we had discussions about what it would look like between the breakdown between the municipalities and what assessments look like. There's a lot of detail. So just so you know that this is not like this is happening. We're talking about this project, but there's a lot more to do before we actually move forward with it.
Right. So the next step is that this would be included, I believe, in the CIP, the mayor's proposed CIP. And then council would, of course, be able to modify that. So if that's not something that council wants to move forward with, it might not make it into the final CIP, but I believe it will be in the proposed CIP if it's not already published. I can't remember if that's published yet.
The CIP has been published. I actually can't speak to it. I have to look it up.
Oh, okay.
Ron, we're 5 minutes over.
Yeah, we need to keep moving here. So you have much more, Claudia?
Curry Court, we don't have to go through it. I think we got through kind of the background information.
Oh, we got a lot there.
I have 5 more slides. It's up to you.
I didn't see those in the packet. Did you recently add those?
I made this earlier today.
Okay. Can you maybe send these slides to us, and maybe possibly can we discuss them at the next meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
I really appreciate this because we've not had this kind of a conversation ever. When the assessment policy was updated in 2013, we never saw that. So I really appreciate you bringing this.
Yeah, and my understanding is, some projects are really straightforward. So if you're replacing sidewalk, it's really straightforward and you almost use the same equation. But stormwater projects are never straightforward. So my understanding is that the assessment policy often you find a new situation and a decision is made on what is appropriate for that situation, and then the assessment policy is updated to match. So that's kind of historically how it's worked, but the way I'm operating is I'm trying to make it match the current assessment policy to the best of my ability. And then if it changes based on what council wants, then we would want to go back and update the assessment policy accordingly.
I think that's great. There should be some guidelines to follow so it's not haphazard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thank you, Claudia, and Diane, thank you for that recommendation. I think we should follow up on this at the next meeting. Just get to see the last few remaining slides that Claudia had to share. Okay, on to the next item agenda, item 5, the old business, 5A, USGS Swan Creek Monitoring Station. Claudia, can you, for Josh purposes, can you pull up the aerial image of where that station is located? And then have those pictures ready?
I can. One sec.
I'll let you work behind the curtain now while I talk, so. So Josh, over the last year, the city's been working with other entities, the township have done, or the town have done, and some non-private organizations and NGOs to get a gauging station installed on Swan Creek, which would help measure any performances of stormwater improvement activities in the watershed, because Swan Creek drains through a lot of the area of Fitchburg, and it's actually draining through a lot of those areas where new development's occurring. And so we worked with the USGS to get a monitoring station out there. And so we finally were successful in getting it done. The city got it budgeted in their budget last year. And the station was installed on May 18th. And Claudia, if you could show us where that's at on the map, there's Layla Road. So it crosses right there at Layla Road. So that's where the station will be. If you scan to the right a little bit, you'll see you have Lake Wabisa onto the right, and then you have, and to the left, and you have the city of Fitchburg boundaries and the Terravesa area where the new development is occurring. So we got a lot of development that's occurring in the Swan Creek watershed. So we want to make sure that a lot of the stormwater improvement projects are working and keeping pollutants loading out of the stream and into Lake Wabisa. So I mentioned it was installed on May 18th, and Claudia, if you could pull up one of those a picture of the station. I think you have 4 of them there.
I do, and I realized I shared the application rather than my screen again. So let me share my screen. Here we go.
Okay, that's the station itself right there that was installed. Historically, I mean, not historically, but originally we were planning to put it on the other side of Layla Road, but there were some differences with the landowner. And so we moved it to the other side once we got approval from the landowner on that side. This just shows the instruments being placed in the water that take certain measurements for conductivity, temperature. We've been measuring flow in those areas. Okay, and this just gives you an overview of a Swan Creek there. The monitors are on the upstream edge of that of the gabion right there, and that's the logo they have on the USGS gauging station. So it's all set up. So we're all pretty excited about that. That was something got accomplished. And so on June 23rd at 2:30 p.m., we're having a ribbon cutting ceremony for that. So Claudia, do we know who's going to be attending at this point? I know I'll be there.
Yeah, and Gabriella and the mayor both are attending. I believe the town of Dunn chair is also attending. And then Todd with USGS will be there.
Okay.
I'm trying.
I'll be speaking for Lake Wabisa Conservation Association and the Friends of Wabisa Wetlands.
What time was that, Ron?
At 2:30 p.m. on June 23rd. So we'll probably have a little less than a dozen people there. And hopefully Todd invited the landowner.
Yeah, and I did remind him, so.
Okay.
Mhm. Can you remind us what will be done with the results of the monitoring?
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to show an example. Claudia, can you click on the link that takes us to the data?
I was gonna say, do we get a URL for a live feed or something? It'd be pretty cool to.
Yeah, I'll show you here. We will click on that link here.
Yeah, and I think that was in the packet.
Yeah.
But let me find it.
Yeah, so we'll have, instantaneous measurements for temperature and flow. And then we'll have measurements also for conductivity. And then we'll have some precipitation measurements. Right now, they don't have the flow gauge calibrated for flow, so they're working on that. So we won't see that data.
And then what will they do with this data?
I'm not sure how USGS is going to use it yet, but I can show you an example of how we could use it. Yeah, there was a link in one of your emails. You just clicked on it and went right to the station.
It was in the staff update.
Yeah, so for some reason, that link isn't working for me right now. So I'm not sure why. So haven't done it this way. I just searched for it. I wonder if this will work.
It's not working for me either.
Or enter a river name there.
I think I might have the link. I'll send it to you, Claudia.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry.
Maybe we should continue this run at a different meeting.
Okay. And it'll take, we can do it at the next meeting. It'll only take like 5 minutes to go through it.
And Ron, just so you know, Todd is going to come speak to the RCC, but he wasn't available. Well, maybe.
Okay. Well, can't we have him at the next meeting?
I forget if it was the next meeting that he wasn't able to come to or this one, but we do have him on the schedule.
Okay.
For an upcoming one, I'm not sure which.
Okay.
Okay, we're now 10 minutes behind.
Okay. Let's move on to the next item, which is the storm drain inlet mural design. Hopefully you can keep that one quick, Claudia.
All right.
Hey, folks. That was my call. I'm still on it, so I got to get back. It's work, so I'm going to step out.
Okay.
All right.
Sally.
Right? Okay. Thanks.
Shelley.
Good job, Claudia.
Thanks.
I learned a lot today.
Great. Awesome.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, so the city received a grant for a storm drain to be placed in the Terravessa neighborhood. And earlier this year, we presented to a group of 10 students at the Mariposa Learning Center about water quality and what you can do to help protect our lakes and rivers. And then the students created artwork that was then used by Dane Arts, Mural Arts, Dama is what they go by, as inspiration for a new storm drain mural design. So this is the design that they came up with. I thought it was super cute. I don't know, I really like it personally. One thing that I did want to mention is that the concrete where this storm drain mural was originally intended to be painted was originally scheduled to go in this summer. I believe either this month or next month, and then we were going to paint. The concrete needs 30 days to cure, and then we were going to paint after that. But I have heard more recently that unfortunately that is being delayed. The concrete can't be poured until we install the lights, because there are a lot of crossings under the sidewalk with the electrical wiring and such. And apparently the lights take a really long, it's a whole long story, but they can only make 4 lights a day. And even though we ordered them in January, we won't get them all until November. You know, it just takes a really long time to get these lights. And unfortunately, that's kind of delayed the concrete being poured where this is supposed to go. So it's a little bit up in the air. I don't believe this will be able to be painted this year as a result. I did drive around just to see if there's another spot in Terravessa where this could go instead. There's not a great spot. we are reaching out to the school there to see if maybe, not the Mariposa school, just because that's a smaller school, but they have the, I forget what the Oregon school right there, which is in Fitchburg, and Fitchburg kids go to as well. But that school is right there, and their concrete is poured. So we're seeing if they have an interest in having this on their property, but it's a little bit up in the air at this point.
If we wait to install it, to paint it until next year, will we lose the grant money?
So it's not really grant money. It's so Dane County actually works with DAMA to install this. So they would provide the money to DAMA, and then DAMA would paint it on our behalf. So it's not guaranteed at this point if this program will continue to next year.
So the grant that, I mean, you mentioned that the city received a grant.
Yes.
So can we spend those dollars next year for this, or it's this year or nothing?
So if the grant continues next year, then I believe we would be able to reschedule it, but that's not 100% guaranteed. So there is a possibility that if we don't do it this year, we would just lose this.
What a disappointment.
It is
by the school would be great.
Yeah, so that's not in the city right away. So we do need to work that out with the school if this is something they want.
Okay, I wonder what that orange thing is.
The
Being a
fish?
being a biologist, yeah.
Oh.
Haven't you ever seen orange fish?
Goldfish.
Really thin, so, okay. All right, well, thank you, Claudia.
Mhm.
Next on item 5C, the Terra Vesta Stormwater Tour. I mentioned this to Claudia to put on our agenda because I think as commissioners, it would be nice if we could get out at least once a year to look at different facilities that we have in the city. And so I thought it would be nice to do some type of a tour of the Terra Vesta stormwater area to look at the things that they've done in there to control stormwater runoff from their new development. And so Claudia, I don't know if you have anything to share there or.
I don't have anything to share. If that's something folks are interested in, I would be happy to.
I'm not sure what the process of doing that is with the commission.
I would like to do that. What we've done, and I think it's a great idea, Ron, what we've done in the past is find out who's interested after, pick a time to schedule it. And depending on how many commissioners are interested, it may need to be noticed. And then we just do it.
Okay. I mean, is that something that we could do through a doodle poll?
So what I've heard from the city attorney is if it's really just coordination, meeting coordination or trying to pick a date and time for something, that can happen via email. If we're really digging into a topic that, that's not allowed to reply all with those kinds of conversations, but just picking a date and time is fine to do through email.
So can we do that with a doodle poll?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Good.
So is there like a certain time period that we want to do this or time during the day or a week?
When it's not 90 degrees out.
Yeah.
I'm pretty flexible, but I would be excited to do it. I would love to
Flexible
do tours.
too.
Do
we
folks
want it-
have the
Do we
idea
want it on
of-
the weekends or do we want it in the evenings? Or Claudia, does it need to be during a work day for you?
I would really prefer it to be during the workday. I didn't think I was signing up for another outside of work hours activity. If that works for folks, that would be my preference.
I mean, it works for me.
Yep, I can make that work.
All right, so I'll just send out a doodle poll. Are people thinking this month or next month or in the fall?
Maybe sometimes in next month or early August.
All right, sure.
And do we have to coordinate with Terra Vesta on this, or would they provide someone to go over their stormwater, or would that be you?
No, they probably wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, we can just go, that's no problem. A lot of the stormwater facilities are owned by the city of Fitchburg. And so we won't be trespassing by going to looking at them.
Okay, great. And this something would be about like an hour then, time?
I don't know that it would take that long.
Okay,
Maybe half an hour to an hour if there are a lot of questions.
Maybe we could include a stop at the Swan Creek monitoring station.
Sure.
yeah. Sounds good. Okay, so
Good
Claudia,
idea, Ron.
so Claudia's going to send out a doodle poll for us to schedule a date and time. All right, 8:28, so we're almost back on schedule.
Yep.
So the next item, 5E, prioritization of stormwater project, Cheryl Drive and Dunn's Marsh. Again, I brought this up with Claudia up to add to the agenda because it seems like it was a pretty serious discussion we had last time, and we didn't have enough time to follow up with it. And we have 10 minutes to talk about it here. So I just was interested in how the prioritization and the ranking goes into determining which projects go first before others when it comes to funding and getting things done, even though one might have a more serious issue than another.
So what I did is I copied into our packet what our stormwater utility maintenance plan has to say about prioritization of stormwater projects. And this is considered a guideline. It's not something that anyone is beholden to. So ultimately, at the end of the day, council decides what order things are done. But this is just kind of a guideline, a starting point to compare projects.
I'll just say too, following up on our conversation from last time, that the CIP has been released. And I have not had a conversation with Claudia yet, but I will have a discussion with her about stormwater projects and prioritization that I don't think needs to happen here today. But just so you know, I will be having a conversation with her about if something could potentially be moved up through an amendment to the CIP.
Okay. So the Dunn's Marsh, what rank did that come in? Was that a 2 or?
So Dunn's Marsh is a rank 1 facility.
1? Okay.
And I did this year, I did try to include that in the actual CIP project description page. So folks have that in front of them as they're comparing these projects. So their ranking was included there in addition to the definition of what it means to be that rank.
Okay, but Cheryl Drive, and how was it ranked?
Cheryl Drive would be a rank 2.
Rank 2.
Because it's flash flooding of city streets and no impact to structures.
Okay, but it got the funding, right?
So that is based on what I am told to put through, I will put through.
Well,
yes, it
if I
passed.
remember correctly, it was because there were extenuating circumstances that made this was easier to get done, and Dunn's Marsh required more work that isn't available up front, right? I mean, that's kind of how this happened, Claudia?
It happened because the people there are more local.
I don't want you to say that because I don't think that that's right.
That's why.
I believe it's correct, but I don't believe that's how it should happen. But Dunn's Marsh, you did tell us we'll get done soon, right?
That was the proposal in the CIP. So.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, next on the agenda, item 6, council update.
Yep.
Gabriella.
So I will.
Now we're 3 minutes ahead.
Yay!
Yeah.
I've got quite a few updates today, so I'll just roll through these and feel free to jump in with questions if you have anything. First, in regards to what we looked at last week, we passed all the resolutions that we passed last time through council. I also was able to show them the street sweeper design choice from the kid that made the winning design. So we showed that at council. Everyone loved it, and the mayor's really excited to do something with them once we actually get the street sweeper. And since we did approve the funding, we should be getting it in the near future. So hopefully we can maybe even have a new street sweeper with that new design, maybe even later this year. So I'm not exactly sure what the timing is, but it's coming up soon. And then at the May 25th meeting, we also voted for a Lacey Road cross-section, and the final design was a little bit wider than what was in the proposal. It includes 2-foot bike buffers and a 10-foot multi-use path, it was supposed to be 10 to 12 feet. It clarified it as 10 feet. And we removed the grading on the south side that would be for a potential future sidewalk, but kept the grading for a terrace so that trees could be planted there, and also for a safety. And really the conversation at the council came down to 2 main things. I mean, alders had different reasons for why they voted for it, but the 2 main things were really, number one, wanting to stay consistent with the comprehensive plan and the bike and pedestrian plan in terms of what was recommended for standards for roads. And then the other thing was safety, that this road, even though there will be a multi-use path, there will be bikers on the road. And this road has a much higher percentage of truck traffic. Normal roads have somewhere around 2% of traffic as trucks, and this road has 6%. Plus there's hills and curves, and it's a little more of a complicated road. So that extra factor, that was what swayed a lot of the committee members to want to have a slightly wider cross-section with more buffer for the bikes to prevent any potential future accidents. So that was voted in at the 525 meeting. The capital improvement plan 2022 to 2031 was released. It is on the Fitchburg City website. The next step is going to be staff presentations at a special finance committee meeting this coming Monday, June 14th. It is a really interesting meeting for anyone that wants to really dig into all the capital projects in the city. It is very long, but it is very worthwhile if you are interested. So I will certainly be there. I do have plans for a couple of amendments that I think RCC will be interested in. I'm not prepared to share those at this time, but I will as soon as I have something more concrete in the near future. And if any of you have ideas about things you'd like to see, feel free to reach out to me. Now is the time, because I'm working on that now. I believe that the amendments are due sometime in early July. So there's some time, but the earlier the better for bringing ideas to me.
Can I interrupt for a
Yes,
second?
go ahead.
We usually have, I was just looking at our calendar, we usually have an agenda item to submit CIP requests as a committee. So we do have that, right? We're going to be discussing that in July?
We can. I mean, but the amendments are always sponsored by an alder, and I'd be perfectly happy to discuss any ideas from the committee and potentially submit them myself, unless another alder would be interested. But traditionally, there's no submissions from a committee. That being said, I would be happy to have a discussion about it. But really, I only have insight into what I am proposing. I don't necessarily know what other alders are proposing unless they in particular share that.
In the past, we've been told it should come from the department. The council didn't want us to submit requests for amendments, even through our alder, that they should go through the specific department. And so as a committee or commission, we would discuss our request, and that would be forwarded to Bill. And for him to decide whether or not to include it in his CIP request. So where are we on that?
So that would be past time, because the staff proposal has already been incorporated into the staff made proposals, then the mayor put together his proposed CIP, then it's released to the public, and then the next step is the alders have an opportunity to amend the document. And amendments have to be submitted through a specific process that has to be done prior to the discussion of the amendments. You can't bring an amendment to the floor.
Yeah, I know, I'm looking at our calendar, and apparently we were supposed to discuss that in March.
That sounds right in terms of timing.
Okay.
But if there are ideas, please definitely reach out to me. And if you don't even know where to start in terms of going through the document, you can also talk, we can have a conversation, chat about it. And I will certainly let you know what I'm planning, but again, I don't know what any of the alders have until we release that. So hold on, I just looked up the calendar real quick. Okay, so amendments are due on July 6th. And there's a public hearing prior to that. On June 22nd, there's gonna be a public hearing at Common Council if anyone wants to have like public feedback on the CIP. And obviously can inform potential amendments by an alder.
Diane, was that for the operating budget or was
No,
that-
operating budget is on the July, under the July item. No, that was for CIP.
No, I'm looking at so we approve a schedule every year. So the 2022-2031 capital improvement plan schedule includes a public hearing on June 22nd, 2021 at Common Council. There's going to be amendments by the alders due to Finance Director by July 6th, 2021. A final public hearing on July 27th, 2021 at Common Council, which is followed by a discussion of the amendments and adoption of the CIP.
And Gabriella, I think you're looking at the CIP schedule, and I think Diane is looking at the RCC schedule.
I am.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
So I don't know, Diane. I think that was just missed. I'm not sure why. That was just an oversight that we didn't discuss that in March.
It happens, you know, we've got it on the calendar, so next year we'll have it, hopefully it'll
Yeah.
transfer to next year's calendar.
All right, and I'll keep rolling through this too. You may have heard that the American Rescue Plan includes funds for municipalities to do infrastructure work. And so we are getting a little over $3 million in the city of Fitchburg. The finance director is currently working on the process of actually accepting those funds. We have several years to decide what to do with them, and I believe we have to spend all the money by 2026. So there's some time, but we're gonna go through a public process to decide how to use those funds. So that's still very much up in the air, but it is coming. On a separate note, the administrator, the acting administrator, mentioned that we've also asked our federal representatives, senators and congressmen, if they would consider funding for sort of climate resiliency planning, which would include stormwater. So I don't know exactly what that looks like. I don't have the specific details, but we are looking to see if there's any federal funding for that type of thing. So that's in the works. Another item, we had been getting a lot of questions about PFAS chemicals in the city water. The city did put a statement out on the website about it, just in general, but we are doing testing this month on our water for PFAS levels, and then we will report back and make adjustments if we don't meet water quality standards. So that is there.
Is that all wells?
I believe so, but it doesn't give that much specific information, but my assumption would be that all the wells would be tested.
Okay.
When I get the information, I can certainly report back, but none of the results have come back to my net. It's happening this month from my understanding. A couple of things regarding transportation. I am part of the Madison Beltline Planning and Environmental Linkages Policy Advisory Committee, which is a group that's looking at Beltline traffic and how to adjust that in the future to make it work for a growing community. So that's in the works. There will be public meetings, and I can let the committee know about that if you're interested. And then simultaneously, there's also the Regional Transportation Plan 2050 is being launched for the Madison area, kind of the greater Madison area. And they're starting with a public survey, just asking people about how they utilize transportation, because there's potential for there to be a huge population growth over the next 30 years. And we're gonna have to do a lot of planning to make sure that the region can accommodate that. And obviously there's a lot of climate change implications of that. So if you're interested in filling out that survey, it's called the Regional Transportation Plan 2050. And there's actually a news flash on the city website, the front page, that you can find a direct link to it.
That's on the city's website?
Yeah, the news flash section on the front page, where there's like a list of recent news. And the link to the CIP will be there as well.
Okay, great.
And then last night at council, we voted to remove the fee for bike registration, and also like remove any sort of penalties for people that don't register their bikes. I mean, there's several reasons, but basically people weren't registering them anyway, and there was a potential for it to be prevent people from registering their bikes because they were worried about, or preventing them from biking because they were worried that they were going to be in, not register it for whatever reason. So
No,
we removed the
we're supposed
fee.
to register
However,
our bike.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We're supposed to register our bikes in the city. I didn't know that.
I know. That's part of the problem too. It's a lack of communication.
Uh-oh.
So we
Yeah.
removed the fee. There is no longer a fee. You can still register your bike with the police department, and it has the benefit that if your bike is ever stolen, there's a record of it so that it's easier to get it recovered, and that's happened in the past. So now that there's no fee, I'd encourage you all to register your bikes and have it as a backup. But that was officially done at the council meeting, so spread the word and encourage people to get out there on their bikes. We also passed the budget schedule, so the 2022 budget schedule for when the staff is having to submit their proposals, when the mayor submits his, when it comes out, when amendments are due. So that has just passed and it's available on the website. And then the last thing, as of today, the O'Brien Solar Fields is fully operational. And there was a press release that came out from MG&E, so that is up and running fully. And I also understand that they're adding pollinator plants underneath in places where it's feasible,
Good.
because there's such a wide range. So I was happy to hear that as
Yeah,
well.
that's great.
And that is a very long update, but that's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any other questions if there's anything else.
Well, great. You got 1 minute to spare. Okay, next thing on the agenda is item 7, staff update, solid waste. So Phil's not here today, is he? So for the help out.
Oh, yeah, so we'll just skip over the sustainability section this time. For solid waste, I have just the reminder that we did have to end the plastic bag recycling program, and then a link there with a description as to why. Also, the date for the fall recycling event is Saturday, November 6th from 8 to 11. So that's there again as a reminder. In the stormwater update, we have our intern running around doing our illicit discharge inspections for the city. That's currently underway. And we've also been working on an audit of all stormwater management permits to see if there are any that are not currently in our database for long-term management tracking. We did order several signs and also replacement signs for stormwater facilities throughout the city. And then a final report for the sub-zero stormwater watershed or stormwater study has been issued, and you can find a link to the report and presentation there. One thing that I'm noticing I forgot to mention here, and I'll include it in the next staff update, is we did have the first public information meeting for the public drive stormwater project. And you're familiar with that project. I would encourage you, if you're interested well, actually it will probably come to this commission. I'll bring it to this commission in particular, but one of the tasks there is to look at a potential backyard program so that residents could apply to get assistance with private issues on private property. So in the past, the city has not funded anything on private property. If the stormwater utilities role was considered to be maintenance of city infrastructure within city right-of-way, in city easements, on city property. So this would be a pretty big policy change. So I think that would be something that RCC would be interested in knowing about. So I just wanted to point that out.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Where is that? Is somebody just proposing that, or what's the status?
So so the status is it is being proposed by folks in the neighborhood to use stormwater utility funds on private issues located on private property. And so what we're doing is we're doing a study. The first piece is gathering input from residents on what they feel the stormwater utilities role should be in these private water issues. And then the second piece is doing research into other municipalities to see if there are backyard programs in other municipalities, and if so, how are they run? Is there an application process? What types of problems would be eligible for that type of program? How much funding is put aside for that type of program? So a lot of questions. We're just at the beginning stages of that. But at the end, if we determine that that would be a good idea, then staff might, and I'll bring it here as well to get RCC opinion on that, but there might be a proposal to council to put such a program in place.
If, just a suggestion, I'm not sure how you're going to survey residents, but it might be beneficial to do the second survey first and find out what other communities are doing, so that when you do survey residents, maybe you can give them a couple of options and get feedback on them. But my prediction is that any residents would gladly accept city money to help with their problem in their backyard. So I can't imagine anybody saying, no, you shouldn't use city money for that.
Sure, and it will impact city stormwater rates. It's not free to
Yeah.
give out money. So
Well, I realize that.
so
It's like the $3 million that the city's getting from the federal government. It's not like we're not going to pay for that in our taxes.
sure. But yeah, so actually the survey has been done, and it was in the Tower Hill neighborhood. So because that's kind of where we're hearing a lot of feedback that there should be a program like this. So those are the folks who we sent the survey to get their feedback on what they're hoping that to look like.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Claudia, I just have a quick question on the solid waste. I assume all the dumpsters we ordered out the recycling center have been sufficient for all the cardboard out there now? Are there any issues that come up lately, or seems like
Yeah.
everything's really quiet?
So I don't get weekly calls with complaints, so I feel like that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's good. Great.
We can, we don't have the Star article on here again. Somehow that got missed on this agenda. And I think it was missed on last agenda, but Kim wrote an article that I'm hoping will be in the June.
Yeah, Diane, I can give a quick update if you would like.
Actually, that's not where I was going, but go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, that's all right.
Well, anyway, I'm hoping that Kim's article is in the June one, but we don't have anybody on docket for anything after June.
Yes, we do. Ron's article was not run in May. So they told me that Ron's article will run in July after mine, which is June.
Oh, thanks.
So that's what I wanted to update you guys on.
Sorry, thanks. Well, then we
That's
need
all right.
somebody to start thinking about August. Okay, so maybe at the next meeting, we can have that on the agenda and solicit an August article.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I make one request for announcements too? Can either Chris or, I can't remember who's all involved in the tree diversity event, but could you announce the date and everything and the information about the tree diversity event during the announcements section?
Yeah, I was planning on doing that during the announcements. Do you want me to do that right now?
And that's all I had for the staff update.
Okay. Thanks, Claudia. So next item on the agenda, the announcement. So Chris, fire away.
So yeah, we're doing the tree diversity event. So we had our last planning meeting last night. We have a nice flyer for the event, which you may have seen around the community. Sharon Hanrahan, who's on our community outreach subcommittee, has posted those around. We've been planning this with the tree advisory committee for a while. We've been working on this for, I think, 7 or 8 months now. And so we've organized it through Zoom calls, but it's going to be a pretty cool event. It'll be a pretty quick event. So just in general, we try to target like an hour to an hour and a half for our events. People are busy and have busy schedules. And so we want to try to, have these short duration events for people to come out and learn about a sustainability item within the community. So this one will be on tree diversity, and we're going to cover 16 different trees that there are at Quarry Hill Park. We have a speaker coming in that's a tree expert from Cambridge who I understand is very interesting. And then we have like 4 giveaways. So we have giveaways from local landscaping places. So Fitchburg Farms, K&A Greenhouses, Home Depot, and Young's Garden Center have all donated for this event. So just showing up, you'll automatically be entered to win one of their giveaways. So
Now, what date was that on, Chris?
it's next Thursday, June 17th, and it starts at 6:30. So we're gonna have people bring their own lawn chair and water bottle to the event. And we'll spend a little bit of time listening to the speaker, and then we'll have about 40 minutes to go out and learn specific items about trees. So I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about trees, because I would say my repertoire of trees that I know is very limited for where it should be.
A couple of things. Can we get that on the city website, Claudia?
I think Chris was already coordinating with Phil to make sure that's marketed.
Yeah,
Okay.
I gotta check in with Phil on that, because he was supposed to be putting it on there, and I don't know if it got posted on there yet.
Well, it's not under community events.
Okay.
Also, Claudia, I didn't mean to jump the gun when I talked about the star. I thought you were done. I thought we were into announcements, so I apologize for that.
Oh, no problem.
Chris, do you need any help with the tree diversity event?
I mean, I think we're pretty well set. There isn't a whole lot to do for this. I mean, people are bringing their own chairs, so we don't need to set up chairs. We don't have food for the event. We are going to do a sign up for the event. But we're planning to get there at 6:10, 6:15. So if RCC members want to come a little bit early just to help, kind of with event logistics, we can do that. You're welcome to do that. But I am also sending out an email with a blurb on the event and some other things. So if you want to share it in your local neighborhood e-news list, or if you want to share it on a social media post, that should be coming out right after the meeting. So I've been drafting that during the end of the meeting here, and we'll be sending it out right after the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to place it on our Wildwood South Association Facebook site.
Perfect. And feel free to do a plug, if you can do one this week, and then sometime, next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, or even Thursday morning before the event, that would be helpful, just to kind of give that last minute plug to it. We do have Kim's article coming out and some other things, and it should be on the website. So working with Phil to get all that stuff done, but I think, we should have a decent turnout. So but this is kind of where we get the people for the event, is kind of these social media posts, and highlighting things like the giveaways, I think, is a good thing to highlight if trying to draw people to come to the event. But we think it'll be a good one. They always are. So we're excited to be able to do this event in person again.
Thanks for your work on this.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right, any more announcements from anyone? Wow, we got 4 minutes left. Wow. So if there are no other announcements, go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 8.
Good job, Ron. Your first meeting and we finished early.
Woohoo, Ron, keep it up.
Also, A+ to the timekeeper.
Thank you.
I am. And so Josh, hopefully it wasn't too terrible for you.